Hello everyone, I'm Miriam Batrisha. In today's presentation, my group will be presenting financial performance of Hikmat, Bakti, Berhad. I would love to introduce my team members, me myself, Malsha Kira, our leader, Dania Dalila, and Izahir Dina. First and foremost, liquidity ratio. The purpose is to show a firm's ability to meet its short-term financial obligations, whether the company has the resources to pay its creditors when payments are due. This ratio compares the firm's total current assets with total current liabilities. Higher ratio indicates increased liquidity. The higher the liquidity, the easier it will be for the company to pay their creditors on time and vice versa. The two commonly used liquidity ratios are the current ratio and quick ratio. From the calculation, Hikmat Bakti Berhad's current ratio of 2 times is lower than the industry average of 2.1 times, hence its liquidity position is lower than average. This shows that the company may be holding too much inventory or poor debt collection system. To improve, companies can promote cash sales, as selling goods on a cash basis will solve most of the cash flow related problems. To encourage cash sales, discount can be given. However, Hikmat Bakti Berhad's quick ratio 1.18 times is higher than the industry 0.9 times. It indicates that the Hikmat Bakti Berhad does not have any problem paying its current liabilities when the need arises, as it will be able to pay its current liabilities on time without liquidating its inventories. To improve, the company should manage its current liabilities well, such as reducing the current liability if it is too high. This could be done by paying the existing creditors or by using long-term sources for future financing.
The purpose of the asset management ratio is to measure how effectively the firm is managing its assets in generating sales. They show the amount of sales generated for every dollar of asset investment. It includes 4 ratios: the inventory turnover ratio, average collection period, non-current assets turnover, and total assets turnover. Hikmat Bakti Berhad's inventory turnover ratio 7.48 times is above the industry average, which is 6.5 times. It indicates that the company is efficient, has good sales, and does not have overstocking problem, therefore takes less time to convert the inventory into sales. To improve, Hikmat Bakti Berhad will have to determine the kind of product they are selling and the degree of competition in the industry with regard to the pricing policy. This will help determine whether the product is price elastic or not, as the selling price will affect the demand of the product. Hikmat Bakti Berhad is taking longer time, which is 40 days, to collect their receivables as compared to the competitors in the industry, 35 days. It indicates that Hikmat Bakti Berhad is having problems in being paid for the services rendered and products sold. It also reflects the company's credit policy, where they are practicing loose credit policy. Hence, Hikmat Bakti Berhad is not effective nor efficient in extending credit and collecting debts. To improve, Hikmat Bakti Berhad needs to adopt a tighter collection policy by reducing the existing credit period. They may also offer cash discounts to encourage early payments. Hikmat Bakti Berhad's non-current assets ratio is higher, which is 2.5 times, compared to the industry average of 2.0 times. This indicates that the firm is utilizing its assets more efficiently compared to the competitors in the industry. To improve the non-current assets turnover ratio, the company can utilize the use of the non-current assets more efficiently in order to produce sales and from these assets, and also to avoid too much investment in the non-current assets. Hikmat Bakti Berhad's total assets turnover ratio 1.52 times is lower than the industry average of 1.6 times. It indicates that Hikmat Bakti Berhad is generating lower volume of sales with the amount of assets they own as compared to the industry average. To improve, Hikmat Bakti Berhad should increase its sales volume by reviewing the firm's selling price, doing aggressive sales promotion, or giving trade discounts for purchase in large quantities, or dispose of some assets.
I will continue with leverage ratio. The purpose of leverage ratio is to measure the level of debt or borrowing in a firm. It indicates whether the company uses more debt financing to finance its assets and operation as compared to equity financing. Furthermore, it shows the ability of the company to honor their medium and long-term debt commitment on repayment of the principal and interest charge. It is also used to increase the potential return on an investment to help the company operate. Leverage ratio includes debt ratio, debt equity ratio, and time interest rate. Hikmat Bakti Berhad's debt ratio is 30.36%, lower borrowing than the industry average of 40%. It indicates that Hikmat Bakti Berhad is able to reduce its potential loss that may occur in the event of liquidation, and the company will not experience difficulty in raising additional borrowing, as they are not at risk of not being able to pay back. To improve, a company should manage its external financing by borrowing less than is necessary. This is also possible by reducing the dividend payout ratio to ensure more retained profit for expansion. Hikmat Bakti Berhad debt to equity ratio is 58.2%, lower borrowing than the industry average of 60%. It indicates that Hikmat Bakti Berhad use more equity and less borrowing as their source of financing. This proves that the company is able to fulfill its obligation to creditor. To improve, a company should pay existing taking loan, especially loans with high interest, and avoid taking additional debt financing as it can increase the ratio. Hikmat Bakti Berhad's time interest earn ratio is 6.67 times, lower duration than the industry average of 7 times. It indicates that Hikmat Bakti Berhad is unable to fulfill its interest obligation quickly and has a higher chance of defaulting as it has less money available for debt repayment. To improve, Hikmat Bakti Berhad should have an optimum mixture of source of financing and reduce the amount of debt, lower its interest payment. If possible, Hikmat Bakti Berhad should increase their sales to have increased earning before interest and taxes. The next one is profitability ratio. The purpose of the profitability ratio is to measure how effectively the firm uses its asset to make profit. They show the profit earned for every dollar of sales made or the profit earned per dollar of investment in asset. This ratio also includes the firm's efficiency in controlling cost and pricing policy. Profitability ratios include gross profit margin, operating profit margin, net profit margin, return on asset, and return on equity. Hikmat Bakti Berhad gross profit margin ratio of 42.35% is higher than the industry average of 38%. This indicates that Hikmat Bakti Berhad is more profitable than the other companies in the industry. To improve, a company may need to review its pricing policy, reduce cost of sale by changing the supplier, and lastly, to reduce labor cost and production wastage. Hikmat Bakti Berhad's operating profit margin ratio of 14.11% is lower than the industry average of 18%. This indicates that Hikmat Bakti Berhad is making lower operating profits than the industry average. Even though the gross profit margin of Hikmat Bakti Berhad is higher than the industry average, they are incurring high operating expenses. To improve, Hikmat Bakti Berhad should reduce cost of sale and operating expenses depending on the firm's situation. Hikmat Bakti Berhad's net profit margin ratio of 8.80% is higher than the industry average of 8%. This indicates that Hikmat Bakti Berhad used lower operating expenses compared to the industry average. To improve, a company may reduce their operating expenses and increase their revenues through selling more goods or services. And lastly, a firm can also increase the price. Hikmat Bakti Berhad return on asset is 20.41%, slightly higher than the industry average of 20%, which indicates that assets are fully utilized and are used efficiently. To improve, a company should utilize their asset with full efficiency to generate higher return. Hikmat Bakti Berhad's return on equity of 23.97%, higher than the industry average of 20%. This indicates that the company's return for shareholders are better than the average, as return on equity measures the profit earned by the common stockholders from their investment in the company. To improve, a company should increase its profit by the common stockholders from their investment in the company, as the higher return on equity, the better the return for the shareholders, which will contribute to higher return on equity.
Marketability ratio relates to firm stock price, its earning and book value per share. It gives the management an indication of the way investors think of the company's past performance and future prospects. The main purpose is to measure the investor perception and judgment towards the firm's growth potential. It includes earning per share, dividend payout ratio, price earning ratio, and dividend yield. As for earnings per share, Hikmat Bakti Berhad's shareholders are getting Rm 0.35 per share held in the company, higher amount than industry average of Rm 0.28. This shows that shareholders are getting higher profit per share than average. Hence, this is definitely preferred by the existing shareholders and will attract potential investors. To improve, companies are encouraged to buy back their own shares, which will reduce the amount of outstanding stock.
Hikmat Bakti Berhad is paying 15 cents dividend per share to the existing ordinary shareholders, which is slightly above the industry average of 14 cents. A higher dividend per share will attract potential investors, and existing stockholders will continue the investments. To improve dividend per share, Hikmat Bakti Berhad should increase their company's net profit out of the dividends paid. This is because if the company is performing well and cash flows are improving, they will be able to pay shareholders higher dividends. An increase in dividends shows the positive indicator of company's performance. Hikmat Bakti Berhad distributes 42.86% of its earnings as dividends and therefore retains 57.14% of the remaining balance for investment, expansion, and other purposes. To compare with the industry average of 30%, Hikmat Bakti Berhad's dividend payout ratio is higher, which naturally will attract more investors. To improve, the company should change their growth strategy, which is to spend less of its cash flow and earnings on growth and expansion, so that a larger share of profits would be available to be returned to equity investors in the form of dividends.
Would we accept the loan from Hikmat Bakti Berhad? Here are some things we would take into account. First of all, debt ratio of Hikmat Bakti Berhad is lower than the industry average. So, the lower the debt ratio is, the lower the chance for the company to incur financial losses. Hence, it reduces potential losses that may occur in the event of liquidation. Second, debt to equity ratio of Hikmat Bakti Berhad is also lower than the industry average, indicating that they are using less borrowings, hence will be able to continue making loan payments even when their income is temporarily disrupted. And last but not least, their gross profit margin and net profit margin of Hikmat Bakti Berhad both showed good performance, indicating how efficient their company's management is in earning profits relative to the costs involved in producing their goods and services. So all in all, as you can see, most ratios of Hikmat Bakti Berhad showed good performance. Hence, as an officer of Al Rajhi Bank, we would accept loan application from Hikmat Bakti. Limitation of financial ratios. First of all, it requires comparative studies. Ratios produced through statement analysis are not always reliable indications of a company's financial health and profitability. So in order to get an accurate diagnosis, analysts must do more research and use their judgment and apply other financial analysis tools. Second, problems of price level changes. So because of the price level changes over the years, many ratios are established based on historical costs and ignore price changes between periods, and this clearly does not accurately reflect the financial condition. Moving on to the third limitation, limited use of single ratios. Analysts can only depend on one metric. Before making conclusions, it is necessary to investigate numerous related ratios. Fourth, incomparable. Different firms may value their inventory in different ways, so the comparisons will be inaccurate if firms are compared using various inventory value methods. As a result, financial ratio comparisons are inaccurate since the systems employed by different organizations are not standardized. And finally, limitation financial statement. Financial statements are created using historical cost data. Because money's purchasing power fluctuates, the asset and liability values reflected in financial statements do not represent current market conditions. That is all from us. Thank you for watching.